Jerry's okay. Yeah, maybe not. Welcome back, everybody, to Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Again, January 19th, 2019. And to my left sits the extraordinary attorney Benton Ross Watson. Ross, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. How you doing today?
Just still trying to get some respect, man. It's never what it appears to be, right?
Oh, man, everybody respects you. All those duffel bags and love letters and fan mail I get for you. I swear my back's killing me.
Well, don't make me read it, too, man. I can't handle that.
Ross, we had a...
Reading all this stuff for you, preparing for today, we got some good questions on the trusts, and we didn't even get to cover all of our segment last time, so we got to go over a little bit of that with the PTSD
well,
issues.
We got a nice jump on the clock, so we're going to cover it all. So for all of you who have sent in questions on the topics that we're about to touch, if you want to give us a call, 254-697-6633. Feel free to give us a shout. We'll put you on, and you can ask directly. Anyway, Ross, take it away. You know what you got. I see all these notes here.
So, we talked about the insanity defense, some sort of diminished capacity rules that, there's no longer that specific defense. We talked about maybe some ways that you can launch the defense based on your mental state, based on some sicknesses that you have, and then we got into PTSD type of issues, and I said that that was a big deal for me. Initially going to law school was a very motivational topic, and a lot of times we don't understand the significance of PTSD. We don't even understand what it is. I think that there's a lot of myths that is blown out of proportion sometimes, that sometimes it's not made a big enough ordeal, and a lot of times, especially when you get into the LTC context, right, when you talk about veterans too, there's a lot of stigma that goes on that only exacerbates the problem, okay? And so I at least want to touch on those things and make everybody aware, because I think they're important for people to know. And that was the first thing. Let's just say with PTSD, there's a lot of myths, okay? And first of all, and maybe I should start with the stigma part, but I'm going to start with the curability aspect. PTSD is curable. Okay, and so PTSD is going to come about when you've been witnessed, or you've been impacted physically, right, or emotionally by some sort of traumatic event that, and it too, a lot of times when in the military context, we're talking about over a longer period of time, and so your body either gets conditioned, or you get into sort of a state where you have adverse reactions, or you put yourself where you're trying not to have adverse reactions because certain triggers, when I say set you off, I wish I had a different phrase, because that's what I'm going to talk about.
That's accurate. People are going to understand that.
That's true, but I think when we use phraseology like that, and again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, right? I'm not trying to give psychological advice, but I am saying that there definitely are myths, and I deal with these types of issues even in my practice, and so they're definitely curable. And a lot of people think that, once you have this, you must be a crazy person. These things can be cured with simple, even with 3 to 6 months of cognitive therapy.
Is it cured or is it controlled?
They do have control. I mean, some are serious where it takes a long period of time and they're controlled, but they're absolutely curable. You can go look on the Department of Veterans Affairs website, but you can also go look on, a lot of government military websites are going to quote statistics. They're also going to have, you can go look up, the DSM, which is just the manual that you're going to give diagnosis for, psychological disorders. That in the notes there, the comments, you're going to see a lot of studies that show 40%, about 40% of veterans with PTSD are cured with behavioral cognitive therapy alone. And that's pretty much the most standard form of therapy. Okay, and so you can absolutely be cured of this. It's not something that just because you have it means you're some kind of crazy person, have a genetic disorder or something like that you're always going to have these problems. And that goes to LTC because, think about it, and that goes into the stigma aspect. A lot of these times the people aren't seeking treatment because they don't want to have these secondary collateral consequences that are harsh, say, for jobs. Right, they don't want to go admit that they need a little bit of help because they don't want there to be any evidence that they've had this psychological disorder, and therefore preventing them from getting certain licensing approved on certain applications. And so we should really encourage society more to allow this and not look at it so badly, because you absolutely can be cured. And the turnaround is amazing, and especially when we look at military service personnel. Yes, these people have been trained to kill. Okay, it's just in a nutshell. So we don't. I mean, I could explain it a bunch of different ways, but they're trained to do this kind of thing, and so, but they're also very strong-willed people, right, and very disciplined people. Very, usually, to some degree, have some sort of self-discipline that can get them through a process. And so you see a 3 to 6 month turnaround in a lot of these military service personnel if they just do therapy. Okay, if they just do cognitive therapy, you can even do a limited time of medication. And so I think that that's important, because it's not something that just because maybe we've seen a doctor for a couple of months, that shouldn't prevent us from getting a handgun or even certain kinds of jobs. I think once we've gone through it, we've shown that we've gone through the process, then I think that should be enough, as long as there's some kind of testing, which they do, to test you out to say you're cured.
Are you versed enough into giving an example of what they may do to help somebody who has PTSD as compared to medication? What could be something other than medication to help somebody get through that? Do you have any ideas?
Oh yeah, you can. They've got tons of treatments, and they've got stuff where, too, like they're going to do an extended period of time. They're just going to talk about all the situations, and it's going to help you when you see a trigger. It's going to help you respond to it in a better way, and eventually that can go away. Also, they've got I forget exactly what it's called, but your eyes, your vision is a lot based on the triggers, because you're always focused in the field, right? And so a lot of times what you see in your field or some kind of movement will set you off, so to speak. And so they train your eyes. You know, they teach you how to de-stress yourself. They teach you how to
I don't know if I'd want to give that up, because I'm constantly scanning. When I do security detail or something like that, or in the military, that's the thing that keeps me protected, is seeing it before it happens. You know, that'd be difficult for me.
Yeah, and so too, with the, like Vietnam, they've said is undisputed that they've had the highest amount of PTSD, and still people aren't coming forward. It's like a 30% rate of veterans that were in Vietnam, and that's simply because of the environment they were in. They didn't know where it was coming from. There was guerrilla warfare, so to speak, that at any time from any place that these attacks could be launched. And so it was a lot more stressors and triggers that they had to be aware of, which goes back to what you're saying, right? You don't want to lose. Those are some good things. And in fact, they said that there's a lot of studies that show once you go through this process, you're actually a much more successful, right, citizen than other people, because now you've got the tools, right, but you don't have these triggers. You can get rid of them. And so it's a big deal. But I would also say a lot of people, it was 30% from Vietnam, but normally it's 11 to 20% coming from other wars, okay? And that just shows, just because you were in the military doesn't mean you have PTSD. And a lot of people want to jump so quick to say that somebody's got PTSD because they're in the military, and that's simply not true. Yes, there's an obvious correlation. There's some causation too that we can quantify, and we know that it's there, but it's not the cause of some kind of. It's not going to be the cause of a terrorist attack.
Can you have PTSD from a marriage, from a relationship, from whatever in that aspect? And what I'm trying to get at is this: if somebody has difficult time dealing with somebody they're trying to meet, or in a relationship because of past histories of being abused or rejected, things like that, can you have PTSD in that any type of scenario?
Well, there's obviously got to be some traumatic event, right? Either emotional, but I mean, there's obviously got to be something that was threatening to your life, or you seeing something that was threatening to other people that you cared about.
I'm thinking, what if somebody gets depressed because of the rejection?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of times too, it's not the PTSD in and of itself that leads to the problems. The PTSD will lead to the depression, will lead to the anxiety. Then that will lead to relationships going, sour. And then so now you don't have any friends, and now that leads to the depression state, which leads to those suicidal type of tendencies. And that's what I was going to say. There was a 2013 study that said Army suicides have more than doubled since 2001, and outnumbered combat deaths. That was as of 2013, and I know that was still true in 2015. I don't have the more current statistics, but at the same time, a lot of these people aren't getting treated because of the stigma. They don't want to go, and so it's not the PTSD alone that's causing this.
That's why we're always saying, Ross, that's why we're always saying it's not the gun problem. It's not a gun problem. It's a mental problem.
I think to some degree it's a society problem. I think that there's a lot of judgment there that shouldn't be there, that if we would just go ahead and get the treatment and get it over with, we could get these people in and out, and they would be fine again. We wouldn't have these exacerbated problems like we have. And I think too, there's a I did want to say there's a we talked about, I gave a brief example before we left the show last time, and I was talking about the flashbacks. And a lot of people think, oh, well, when you have PTSD, you get these flashbacks. Yes, that's one of them, but there's so many types of symptoms and so many what we call typologies. And the one that gives the flashbacks where you're almost hallucinating, it's almost like you're right back in the right back into the heat of the battle, is the dissociative reactions. Okay, those are extremely rare.
English, please. 50-cent words.
Those are rare when you have a flashback, so to speak, when you go back to where you are. And so a lot of people think, well, if you got PTSD, you're crazy, you're going to start hallucinating and just start firing everywhere. And that's not true either. And when you look at the correlation to the so-called mass shootings, which we've talked about, it's crazy how they classify a mass shooting, but there's no indication that it's PTSD people from the military. They're doing this. Yes, there's a couple involved in the military, but it's not.
Basically, people got a problem.
Okay, and so there's no difference even in that for the military versus what we call the CTE, which what I would get probably is my problem from playing college football, which is the chronic traumatic cephalopathy. Did I get that right, Rick Dodd? He's going to tell me, but which is the constant, impacts to the head over and over and over a long period of time, and so these can lead to problems too. Which brings me to the TBI. That's when we get problems when we have a TBI, which is called a traumatic brain injury, and you guys can get this from anything: a car wreck, falling on your head as a youngster. Rick Dodd can talk to you for hours about the long-term repercussions that you might get from what you think might have been a small concussion, and really you have a traumatic brain injury. And so there's a lot that goes in there, and that's how those plaintiff lawyers get those big jury verdicts with the TBIs, is because it's not just a concussion that you felt at that time. Yeah, there was that effect at that moment, but that effect, those damages, could stem the rest of your life, and it could lead to Alzheimer's. There's correlations and causations that lead to things like that, to strokes later, to memory loss, to cognitive failure in the long run. So if you think that you hit your head pretty hard, and or your son, especially, let's say you have a car wreck and your kid's in the car, get them checked for a TBI.
I'll never forget this. When I was going through airborne school, they go through, you're jumping off of like a 4-foot bench, and then you go to a 32-foot tower, 250-foot tower. But before you even get up there, you're practicing how to fall. Okay? And you're supposed to tuck your head. But man, before you learn to tuck your head, the back of your skull is slamming. It's hitting that ground every time. Like, oh, you're going to learn sooner or later. But by the time you do that, you got brain damage.
Absolutely. There's some evidence that there's more TBIs and PTSD type of stuff caused in the training aspect more than it is actually if there's a conflict. So you're absolutely right. I mean, but that's just the nature of the beast. There's no way that we're going to send our guys out there if they're not used to some sort of impact.
No, of course not. I'm just saying, my gosh, it's probably part of my problems now is why I am the way I am, from knocking my head so many times.
And so the last thing I wanted to say is there's not a lot of cases either that give somebody that's in these situations a defense. And a lot of times, these types of people that do have the serious stuff should be entitled to like an insanity defense. But the insanity rules for the dissociative states, the rare ones that we talked about, where you do have the hallucinations and the flashbacks. And so they don't get this defense, and maybe we can present it in mitigation of punishment. But I think that, especially when you're talking about in the course of military service, these guys should be given some sort of, at least, I think that they would be entitled to some sort of defense more than somebody else, right? That would have this condition, and because they're putting themselves out there, they're doing it for everybody. They're sacrificing their bodies and their long-term health, and sometimes this happens. And we as a society have made it where it's very difficult for them to get treatment because of collateral consequences, secondary effects, into their livelihood. And so that's another reason why there was a big push for veterans courts. That when a veteran gets in trouble and it has something to do with drugs or some sort of, maybe it could be a little bit violent, but not like murder or anything, but certain offenses like that, especially in Bell County, is real good about a veterans court program. And I wish that smaller counties like Milam County, Falls County, right, Grimes County, Limestone, all these were more equipped to help their veterans out in situations. I think because if they could get that help from the veterans court, their case would be dismissed and it wouldn't go on their record, and they would get the help they would need, and then they would be able to get out and be a productive individual and pay taxes and do all that stuff.
Since you and Rick are of this mindset, can veterans like this come to you and you can direct them, guide them, counsel them, work with them and for them to help them in their cases?
Yes, I mean I have veterans before, and to the DA's office here in Milam County's credit, I mean they have tried to work with me once or twice in a good veterans case to try to get this guy into a veterans court program, but it's not here. We don't know anything about it. We don't have the administrators here. Like, it's just very difficult to work that situation. It's very frustrating for the DA's office here, and so I wish there was more collaboration between the district attorney's office on this subject. I wish when they go to the legislature this year, Bill Torrey, if you're listening, maybe press the legislature for more of a collaborative effort between the prosecutors, especially from the big counties versus the little counties.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard it. If it's not mentioned, maybe we can put a little pressure and say, hey, respectfully, can we bring this up?
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be something that needs to be brought up. It's a big topic. I mean, and there's good guys out there that are trying to do drugs because of the pain that they're feeling, back pain, head pain, right? They're just trying to ignore reality, and really they could go and do 6 months of treatment and it could be done. They don't even have to face this again. And we were asked. So I'll move on to trust. I know we're getting behind here, but I think that's an important topic. And so for trust, remember we have the NFA firearms, and that would be short barrel firearms, short barrel, the shotguns and the rifles, and then we've got the machine guns, and we've got silencers, right? All of those you're not allowed to possess without authorization from the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and explosives now, and so you've got to get permission from them and apply for an application, and it's probably just a money grab. It's a $200 tax on every firearm that you purchase, and so then they passed. We talked about last year. They passed, at the very beginning, because it was 2016 legislation, the 41F. The 41F pretty much even the scales as far as the actual requirements that you have to go through for the application process, and it removed the CLEO, the local law enforcement officer's approval, right? You no longer have to get that even if you're not in a trust, okay? And that was
LLC, corporate.
That was a big deal because people wanted trust, right? So they didn't have to go through the law enforcement officer; they could just notify him, and that would be it. They also wanted it because there was some administrative things that were cheaper and a lot faster to do. That's no longer the case. Everybody's on an even scale. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to do a firearms trust, okay? The firearms trust, if just real quick, there's 3 reasons to do a firearms trust versus doing it by yourself. One is you get multiple people that are able to use that individual arm, okay? That individual silencer, machine gun, or long barrel firearm, okay? And that would be all the more reason to do it, instead of if it was just you as an individual buying that firearm, only you could have it. And I took a great example, and I didn't mean to plagiarize. I thought I was going to get the website, but there's absolutely a good website out there, and I am taking off there because it's a great example. It would be like if you bought a silencer for yourself, and you had it on your rifle to go hunt hogs, and you were gone one night, and somebody broke in, and your wife happened to grab that rifle to defend herself, okay, she's now effectively using, okay, that silencer in violation of the National Firearms Act and in violation of the regs for ATF, and now you're also in violation because you allowed that to be used by somebody who wasn't authorized as an applicant, and
that's when people are just being stupid in the court of law. Somebody would actually do that. They go, this woman just defended herself. The guy has it legal, and yet, because I can see it happening. I can see where they would want to bust this woman and rack up a whole bunch of charges against her because of what you just said. But in reality, she just saved her neck. Thank goodness.
Right, and defense wise, I think she would have a defense. She would probably, what we talked about before, necessity. In a case like that, you would have a necessity defense, but that doesn't mean she it's going to be cheap. Right, to assert that offense. There's still going to be penalties. She's still going to have to...
You'll get off, but you're going for the ride.
Right. She's still going to have to pay for the ride, possibly. Okay,
yeah, but the prosecuting attorney should go, oh, come on, this is a good person here. I'm just not even going to look at it.
I got you, but what I'm going to end on is going to show you that, hey, you better be careful, okay? And so you just got to be careful about these things. And then there's another issue. What happens when you die?
Yeah.
What happens? Yeah, they can file what's called a Form 5. They have to go through all this stuff, and most people aren't going to know that your wife, and I say wife, I don't mean to seem sexist, your other spouse, a lot of times one spouse doesn't know as much about guns as the other one. That spouse may have no idea that they got to do this, and now they're, you die and they're cleaning out your closet. They're in possession of this thing, and they're going to go travel to their new house. Like my mom moved to College Station. She's taking it in her car up there with the rest of the guns. She's going to be in trouble. Okay, she gets stopped with that thing. She's not gonna have a clue. Okay, and so, I mean, that's another reason to have the trust. You can designate beneficiaries, and you can designate co-trustees. That would be the co-trustees of the people that we call.
Let me get this right. Technically, the trust is the owner of the.
The trust is absolutely the owner of the firearm.
We are managers of the products.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And your trust, it's smart to just have your one owner, right? Unless you guys are going in on a group deal. But the whole point of the trust thing is so you do have, right, this sustained legacy for these items that you have, and so you can be passed down, and you can designate these beneficiaries, and just make sure you go to the right lawyer, because the right lawyer will actually set it up to where you can have long and short-term co-trustees, okay, without amending your trust. And so it could be like we're going on a hunting trip. You could designate, right, a short-term co-trustee that could then be in possession of the whatever the firearm is in that specific thing, but they're not otherwise going to stay on your trust document, so that when you die, right, you can have your wife, even if she's not approved by the ATF, she can still be an owner. She can still be an owner, okay, and she'll just have to have somebody else to use it and take it around and manipulate it, but she can still own it, whereas if you didn't have the trust, she couldn't own the thing.
Okay, let me ask something as a guy in the street, okay? This service that you provide, is it one of these things that's ongoing and the customer has no idea how much it's going to finally cost? Or is this like, look, this is what it is and this is what it takes, and it's a set fee, and if somebody was to call you and say...
Don't come to me. I'm going to charge you way too much money to do a gun trust. Okay, there's tons of companies online. If it were me, I would go to one of the silencer companies and get a list.
See, but I wouldn't do
of
that.
The lawyers. But if you want names of lawyers, I got lawyers that do gun trusts, right? And that's all they do.
But don't you do it?
I do it, but I'm just telling you that I'm more expensive than you can get it done.
I know there's two ways to look at this. You can have somebody, yes, definitely is counting their pennies, okay? But for me, I want to look you in the eye and say, I want to make sure I'm reading this right. Explain it to me. And don't just explain it to me two different ways, because this simple mind that's talking to you right now needs a couple different ways to hear it.
Right. If you're doing your whole estate plan through me, you're not going to have to worry about paying me for a gun trust. I'll just do that for you. Right? But don't come to me just for a gun trust, because you can go get that done literally for $25. That's probably not the best gun trust, but
that's what I'm getting at. I want to make sure.
It'll probably be one that you can go in and literally the cost involved, yes, that's a con. You're going to pay a little bit more probably because you're going to have to pay for the trust. But if you think about it, if you get 2 or 3 guys, right, together, and you can split the $200 fee, because it's $200 tax per firearm. So that one firearm is going to be a $200 tax for that one firearm. You guys can split that cost. You guys could also split the cost of a trust so that you guys could all use that specific silencer. And a trust is a whole lot better than doing a corporation, because you're going to have to pay, right, the comptroller every single year. You're going to have to pay the comptroller, and you're going to have to pay about a $300 fee just to set up your corporation, and you're probably going to have a lawyer set up that corporation for you.
I can confirm that.
Okay, and so if it were me, the trust is the easiest way to go. And the specific question last week was, should you go ahead and purchase the firearm and then set up the trust, right? Then do it. No, you need to have the trust done first. You're going to incur more cost, because think about it. If you do an individual transfer to yourself, you're going to pay the $200 transfer tax, okay? And you're still going to have to go through the process for yourself. And then if you want to transfer it to the trust, that transfer is going to be another $200 tax, okay? And you're going to have to then pay to set it up. You're going to have to make sure that it's all done right, okay? And so the three things are, right, multiple owners. And think about it too. What if you have a guy that's your buddy and he's in a state that doesn't allow, right, NFA firearms in their state? Right? He can be a co-trustee of the trust. Right? He can't use it in that state, but he can use it whenever he goes somewhere else. But he can still be a party to this document. He can still be a part owner of the weapon. Right? Even though, because the trust is not in that state, the trust is going to be established here in Texas.
If you want to simplify and just keep it to a personal, one person or their family, one person can set it up and the whole family can benefit from it, as compared to...
Absolutely.
Because there's going to be a lot of people out there who are family oriented on this concept idea, as compared to people wanting to get in together. I'm going to guess.
I know, but even if your family doesn't want anything to do with this, it's better to do the trust, because they're not going to be in hot water, and it's going to be a whole lot easier administratively wise, right, once you pass away.
But this is technically, at the moment, for anything that needs a special form from ATF. We're not talking basic 4473 guns that are transferred over, that rifles of 16-inch barrels, shotguns, anything that's legal at this moment that you can get with a basic form 4473. We're talking about the oddball stuff that you got to go through ATF with special forms, right?
Correct. And
short barrel rifles, silencers, 203 grenade launchers, that kind of stuff.
Right, and so multiple owners, organization, and remember we talked about ID cards last year. You can have an ID card so that you know everybody, and if you make those trust ID cards, you can, if you're ever questioned by somebody, let's say at a shooting range, you can just show them, here's my trust, everybody's on here, these are all our IDs, here's my number, here's my application deal, I can go get it in the car. But
that would be just as good as carrying a tax stamped form.
Maybe not, but I mean, it's better than walking around with the form. You can leave it in your car while you have the...
See, that's what I always did. I made a color copy of my forms, and on the short barreled ones that I had, I would stick it in the stock of the rifle, so it's always there, saying, hey, I've got it. If you're going to hassle me, I can produce it, but the last thing I want to do is lose the original, you know?
Right, so multiple owners, estate planning purposes, transfer on death, that kind of thing, organization and documentation. Don't forget about the importance of documenting your separate property. What happens when you die? You got no record of how you got this firearm, and you don't know when you got it, and you want to give it to somebody, but your wife's saying it's community property. If you got it in the trust, it's going to specify that it's your separate property. Okay, that may be important to some people. Okay, and so those are the reasons to do it. It's still something that should be done, even though 41F essentially leveled the playing field for everybody as far as the application process is concerned. Trusts still have a purpose, and they still have a benefit. And I would say if I were going to get one of these types of weapons, the machine guns, the silencers, or the long barrel firearms, I would do a trust before I would do it myself, for sure. I would certainly do it before I would do any kind of business entity, just because it's cheaper, it's cost savings wise.
Okay. Since we're running short on time, you want to talk about stupid stuff, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't be stupid. We always talk about why the legislature does things. Right now, there's a bill up for being passed that's going to not regulate lemonade stands. So in order to sell lemonade in the state of Texas, you got to have a permit and you got to be licensed and inspection. So if you remember in 2000,
yeah, I remember that story. Go ahead.
In 2015, the two girls, a 7 and 8 year old, were trying to earn some money to go on a little family vacation, and they're out there on their own private property in their yard. They have a lemonade stand. They're selling it, for $2 a cup, right? And they just got started. They're up to like $27, and the police come by and literally shut them down.
They should be. Never mind, I won't say it.
Ridiculous.
Read my mind.
Don't be stupid, okay?
Exactly.
So the reason we have stupid laws on the books is because we have stupid government officials that try to overreact to certain situations and take their job way too seriously. Okay, I mean that's just the honest to goodness truth. Okay, and it was crazy because they were gonna have to pay $150 right application fee. They're gonna have to go out of town like an hour just to make the application. They're gonna have to. I think there was going to be some other costs, and they were going to have to open their kitchen for inspection by government officials just to have a lemonade stand out there in their yard. Ridiculous. Okay, and so just I thank you, police. We love you, first responders, things like that. But sometimes they're just stupid. Okay, and so then I want to warn everybody. I had a buddy of mine, I won't say your name, man, but he knew better, and he calls me and he says, man, they told me that they had my records, that the FBI did a raid on the border, my all my information was there. They're calling from the Social Security Administration, the IRS office, and they're telling me they're going to initiate legal proceedings against me. And all this stuff, they had very specific information. They know where my apartment is. I'm staying right now, and he travels around the country. Okay, and so it was kind of crazy that they did know exactly where he was staying at this point in time.
They know everything.
Well, hold on a second. So they're going to issue legal proceedings against him unless he comes forward and tells them all his personal information and gives them his Social Security number. I got more than one call, by the way, on this scam. That's why I'm going to tell you guys. And I told him.
Here they know everything except that, right?
And that's what I was going to say. So I said, man, they work for the IRS and they work for the Social Security Administration. Mm-hmm. What makes you think they wouldn't have your Social Security number? Oh, man. Oh, man. And then I said, you've been in my office several times. You come in all the time and you know what I do. And we talk about all these different cases. And you already know when have you ever heard of a situation where legal proceedings will be initiated against you over the phone? Mm-hmm. Oh, man, golly, God.
I get calls sometimes and people say they want to ask information from me. I go, who the heck are you? Do you think, honestly, me, not knowing who you are, am going to give that type of information to you? Sorry, click. I'm not going to do it. That's why people think I'm such a capital D.
So be smart, don't be stupid. Okay, but be wary. I want to tell you about these scams, and there was another one in Cameron talking about using very specific police officers' names. You can go look up it on Facebook. There was a scam going around. It was put on notice by the city that the scam artists are saying they're specific police officers and they're wanting information from you, and they're using actual police officers that are working here. And so do not fall for that. You're not going to have legal proceedings initiated against you over the phone. And if they want you to come in, they'll ask you to come in. And if you are really that worried about it and you're fretting over it, you can tell them to call my office.
Isn't a raid on your house a legal proceeding?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on how it's done, but I would say they're going to initiate legal proceedings. I would think that would be a court case.
And I'd be like, okay.
And so don't fall for that. Be smart about it. Don't be stupid.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Ross. As always, incredible information. Why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you? And,
so yeah, we've still got questions. I told you I'm still working on two of those questions that I still haven't got an answer to. But if you got them, email me at benton@watson.legal at benton@watson.legal. Make sure you leave your phone number so I can give you a call back. Also, if you want to schedule an appointment, you can give us a call at 254-605-4140 or come see me at 105 East Main Street here in Cameron. That's primary office location. Got a big milk cow on the side. You can't miss it.
Now, explain the difference between you and Rick. Rick's office, because Copley & Dodd Krebs Law Firm sponsors this large segment here, and we can't thank him enough for that. But tell him the separation between primarily, I mean, you can do pretty much anything, but he specializes, you specialize. Explain to everybody what they do again.
They do personal injury work, and they do medical malpractice cases, and they do, personal, very personal rights to your body. Maybe we talked about traumatic brain injury types of injuries. And so if you do have a situation where you got You think you've been abused or misused by the medical industry, or you've been in a car wreck and it's not your fault. Some guy broke the law and hurt you, or some other kind of case where they invaded your physical space and it ended up causing you an injury. Rick is definitely the one to talk to.
Respectforyou.com is a place to go. Now, Ross, we got somebody on the line. Let's see if it has anything to pertain to what you were talking about. Go ahead, Luke. Put him on. All right. He's pushing a whole bunch of buttons. Are we good? Welcome to the show. Who's on the line and what can I do for you? Hello. Well, anyway, let's... Okay, you on the air?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Who's this and what are you calling for, sir?
My name's Eric.
Eric, how you doing, buddy?
All the time, people call saying you got credit cards, wanting to lower your credit card rate and stuff. And if you question them about it and tell them, hey, give me a credit card and I'll have a credit card, then they hang up on you. But they're hacking into everybody else's phone numbers and calling people.
Yes, very possible. And so a lot of times you can go on the FTC website and actually make a complaint. And this actually, a lot of people think this doesn't do anything, but the FTC is very active on callers like that, and especially when on cyber security type of issues. And that's a really good point. I've had people come in my office for this, and I'll make a complaint for them online at the FTC, and you'll see after enough complaints, the FTC will go after these people. They will try to track them down, even if they're overseas.
FTC, explain.
Federal Trade Commission.
I talked to one guy. He said he was in Pakistan.
He told you that?
Yeah, he told me he was in Pakistan.
Well, I like messing with them, but you're right. The longer you stay on the phone, the more information digitally, right behind the scenes, they may be getting on you. So I mean,
I didn't say nothing to him. I just told him I didn't have a dang credit card and take me off their calling list, and then they hang up on me.
Well, it's like the warranty. The people that called me, they called me and say, "Oh, I think I got a call yesterday. You got a Ford Taurus? Oh, we got a warranty for your Ford Taurus." I don't have a Ford Taurus. They said
I get them phone calls all the time about my truck warranties fixing to run out, and it's a 2001 GMC pickup with probably 400,000 miles on it.
And they basically sold your name to another company, and the company wants to try and sell you their aftermarket extended warranty, and that's how it works.
And this goes into the Alzheimer's and stuff we're talking about too. Sometimes they're not after digital information from your phone and phone numbers. They're actually gonna get people that are gonna send them money.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
for something they don't own, just because they're not mentally right able to comprehend what's being said over the phone, and they're very trustworthy.
Then I get this phone call about, well, you get these free back braces and knee braces and everything. And yeah, I had a bad car wreck in 2012, died 6 times, shattered my right femur, and I have pain when the weather changes, but when the weather's warm outside, I don't have pain.
Well, you're a good barometer for bad weather coming in, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Because I got the same challenge. When the weather starts changing, I'm like, oh man, there the aches and the pains start acting up on me. All right, Eric, I can't thank you enough for listening and giving us a call.
I'm going to have to come down there and see you and get you to do that complaint for me.
Yeah, come on, man. I love doing those. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Where's your address at?
105 East Main Street here in Cameron. 105 East Main Street.
Big cow on the side of the building.
Yeah, right across from the courthouse. Yes, sir.
If I come to Cameron to the cow sale, I'll stop by and visit with you.
All right, I love to hear from you.
Great, thanks for the
Thank
call.
you, man.
Eric. Appreciate it. All right, Ross, we're going to, top of the hour here, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have the delicious Janae Goodman. We're running a few minutes late, but it's great information going out there. And then, like I said, Chief Dixon is not here today, so we'll be playing a repeat on gun stoppages and how to clear it. So, Luke, take it away, take a break. When we come back, we'll have the delicious Janae Goodman. Very good, excellent.
That was good, huh?
Very good, very good.